Hello, welcome back to Snugglewood, young Dreamlynx. My name is Arin. Snuggle down into your coziest quilt and let tonight's calming tale and soothing sounds relieve you of any worries and guide you towards a deep, restful night's sleep under these beautiful stars above. And so our story begins in a place called Kindheart Meadows and the sleepy giant tale of Scented Garden. Once upon a slumbering hill, embraced by a sprawling valley, scented with lilac and lavender, there existed a garden like no other. This garden, known as the Scented Garden, was steeped in serenity, where time seemed to stretch and the air carried whispers of stories long forgotten. It was a sanctuary nestled in the folds of nature's dreamscape, purposefully hidden from the hurried world outside. Its famed scents worked their way into the deepest corners of the heart, soothing into calm even the most restless of minds. The heart of the garden was a magnificent meadow, carpeted in soft, rolling greenery that stretched further than the eye could see. Each blade of grass glistened, pearly with dew that never seemed to dry, a perpetual treasure of nature's artistry. Beyond the meadow lay intricate paths paved with smooth stone, winding their way through clusters of vibrant flora that breathed life and colour into the landscape. Roses in ruby red and golden yellow climbed trellises, entwining their blooms in patterns that seemed to sway and shift in the breeze. Wisps of delicate jasmine adorned hedges, adding to the symphony of perfumes that pervaded the air. The centre of Scented Garden hosted its most extraordinary marvel, a towering tree that stood unlike any other in the land. Its trunk was immense, its bark bearing silken textures, as though years of countless seasons had gifted it with wisdom and beauty. It stretched its arms into the heavens, their canopy forming a protective sprawl that held more secrets than one could fathom. This tree was the soul of the garden, and beneath its canopy, dappled sunlight mingled with shadows to create a patchwork of beautiful hues. This mighty colossus stood as the guardian of something historical many years ago. Legends whispered of a sleepy giant said to dwell within the heart of this tranquil paradise. It was not a being of fear, but one of peace, harmony, and slumber. The giant was a timeless presence, neither seen entirely nor revealed completely. Its form was said to be intertwined with the tree, a part of the very foundation of the garden. Its presence was as vast as the boundless sea, yet as quiet as a passing breeze. The sleepy giant had watched eons pass, unbothered by the rush of days, or the weight of centuries. With every season, the garden thrived under its mysterious, benevolent watch. Long ago, storytellers whispered of how the sleepy giant shaped the land with its dreams. Every petal, every leaf, and every breath of the garden resonated with the remnants of its dreaming. It did not stir or rise, for its purpose was not to move. The world around it did that for it. The garden itself flourished as an extension of the giant's essence, blooming endlessly, as though touched by a primal force of calm. Even as birds flitted from branch to branch, and brooks wound their way through stones, the air of the garden carried an unspoken stillness. No one would consciously tread through Kindheart Meadows to find the scented garden, yet it always found those who needed it most. On quiet nights, travellers burdened by sleeplessness and wandering souls with heavy hearts often stumbled into its domain, drawn instinctively to its allure. The beauty, the peace, and the fragrant tranquility enfolded them as if the garden itself welcomed their arrival. For them, stepping into the scented garden was like crossing into a dreamscape, where the worries of the waking world dissolved. The sleepy giant's influence was strongest under the tree. Those who rested beneath its boughs would soon drift effortlessly into restful sleep, lulled into dreams steeped in comfort and vivid imagery. Some spoke of seeing fields of crystal-like flowers glowing softly in starlit hues, while others described golden rivers flowing endlessly, their currents flowing over scenes of pure serenity. These dreams were not just confined to the sleepers. They became part of the garden's essence, reverberating across its paths and petals. The garden seemed to hold these dreams as memories, weaving them into narratives that echoed through those that followed. The scented garden carried no sense of urgency. Here, time became elastic, curling over itself and stretching in timeless loops. Days and nights merged seamlessly as the pink blush of dusk melted gently into soothing blue twilight. The glow of stars mingled with the garden's natural radiance, bathing it in an endless symphony of light and shadow. It felt as if every corner of the garden carried purpose, a balance upheld by the unseen giant in its eternal slumber. Season after season, the garden thrived. Even as the world beyond its borders chased progress and wrestled with time, the scented garden paused, but never stilled. Birds nested among the tree's limbs, and streams carved new paths across its soil. Tiny insects orchestrated hidden marvels amidst the blooms, weaving small worlds that thrived in harmony. Here, change was not rushed, but unfolded with an organic rhythm, dictated by the unseen watch of the sleepy giant. Those who found the scented garden and eventually left it always carried its essence within them, though they might not fully realize it. They would return to their lives calmer and lighter, their burdens momentarily lifted. Perhaps it was the memory of the floral perfume that lingered on their clothes, or perhaps it was the lingering sensation of peace carried by the giant's touch. Whatever it was, the scented garden etched an indelible mark, granting its visitors a fragment of its eternal sereneness. It was said that those who carried fragments of the garden in their hearts could sometimes feel its tug in their dreams. On quiet nights or during hours of need, recollections of the garden would bloom behind closed eyes, summoning soft images of its pathways and glades. Though they might never return physically, the scented garden always remained within reach, an enduring beacon of rest and solace. And so, the garden endured, untouched by haste, rooted firmly between reality and dreams. The sleepy giant remained veiled in mystery as it dreamed, its spirit shaping the undisturbed paradise. Time flowed onward, worlds shifted, and the faithful garden continued to breathe life into the souls drawn into its sanctuary. The scented garden was not simply a place. It was an essence, infinite and everlasting, a slumbering peace that transcended the reach of time and space. Beyond the serene borders of the scented garden lay a quiet world that seemingly held its breath, as if the tranquility within had spilled out and lulled the surroundings into harmony. Paths twisted and intertwined like streams of thought, leading nowhere, yet everywhere, endless in their purpose. The ancient trees, wise and towering, stood sentinel over the age-old secrets buried in the soil. Their branches reached skyward, an open invitation to the endless expanse above, while their roots embraced the earth below, grounding the garden in a symphony of presence and eternity. Seasons passed, each one weaving its colours into the tapestry of the garden. Spring danced through with blossoms of delicate pastels, unfurling petals like tiny hands reaching for warmth. Summer bathed the land in golden light, draping the garden in a lush green exuberance that seemed to hum with life. Autumn swept in with its oranges and reds, painting the landscape in fiery hues, as if the evening sun had kissed every leaf. Winter, gentle and still, covered the garden in a soft white veil, silencing the world but never stifling its heartbeat. The cycle was constant, yet the garden transformed with every turn, adapting and flowing while remaining timelessly itself. Deep within its boundaries, the sleepy giant dreamed on. Though silent and unchanging in appearance, its essence washed through every corner of the realm. Perhaps it dreamed of the very garden that nurtured its slumber, or perhaps it roamed beyond, conjuring visions of lands no eye had seen and no step had tread. Yet the dream and the garden were one, a looping existence where perception and creation endlessly danced. Creatures of all kinds came and went, drawn by the garden's beguiling atmosphere. Birds flitted through the air, their plumage vivid and vibrant against the soft hues of the trees and flowers. Song blended perfectly with the whispers of the leaves, creating a melody as old as the earth itself. Small animals roamed freely, weaving their lives into the fabric of the garden, as though they were threads completing its design. None feared, for the peace that cloaked the garden seeped into every being, wrapping them in a quiet understanding that here all was as it should be. Even those who dwelled beyond found themselves enchanted by the scented garden's essence. It called to travellers burdened by long roads, filling their hearts with a strange longing for solace. Despite the perpetual motion of life within its bounds, the garden exuded stillness. It was a stillness not empty nor stagnant, but alive and pulsating, like the quiet rhythm of a distant tide. Time was of little consequence here, its steady march seeming to waver as if unsure how to proceed. For those who entered the garden, the days felt stretched, drawn out, as every moment elongated to capture the infinite. Legends slowly grew around the scented garden, passed from voice to voice, changing but never losing the awe they inspired. They spoke of wanderers who stumbled through its gates, burdened by weariness, only to be made whole once more. Some stories told of artists finding endless inspiration within its borders, their creations echoing the beauty they encountered. Others whispered of sages who emerged from the garden carrying wisdom that seemed beyond Dreamlynx's understanding. No matter the tale, they always returned to the presence of the sleepy giant, the heart of the mystery. What lay beyond its dreaming form was unknowable. It was neither man nor beast, neither shadow nor light, but something altogether more profound. historic beyond comprehension, yet familiar in the marrow of all who beheld it. The sleepy giant existed not as a being, but a truth so vast and gentle that to glimpse it was to lose track of the edges of the self. Though few ventured near, those that did spoke of a peculiar sensation, as though standing before the giant connected the finite to the infinite. Every worry and question dissolved into the air, made irrelevant in the presence of something so enduring. Those who approached often found themselves inexplicably moved, their steps lighter, their burdens eased, as though the giant had silently shared its ever-dreaming assurance. Yet not all mysteries of the garden revealed themselves in presence alone. The plants, flowers, and trees seemed to hum with hidden meaning, their leaves whispering riddles only the wind understood. There were patterns in the petals, in the colors that glittered under the soft daylight, in the way vines draped like forgotten scripts across weathered stones. Every corner of the garden seemed to hold the promise of secrets, waiting to be uncovered. Not with haste, but with quiet contemplation. One of the most remarkable features of the garden was its fragrance, a mingling of scents so intricate that no word could truly encapsulate it. It was an aroma of renewal, of life at its fullest blooming, of distant rains and memory. It called to those who wandered through, not toward a particular direction, but inward, toward a feeling deeply buried, yet always present. Many who came to the scented garden left unable to describe the fragrance that had visited them, yet carried its essence in their hearts. There was no beginning or end to the flows of the garden. The paths wandered but never concluded, and the labyrinth of greenery held no traps, only gentle nudges to explore further. Each step felt purposeful, as if one was not simply walking, but unraveling threads of an unseen pattern. Even standing still felt like an act of discovery, as though the air itself held a story waiting to be known. The sleepy giant rested at the center, its breath a tide unseen that moved through the entire space. It was guardian, creator, and dreamer all at once, inseparable from the garden, and yet apart. Some legends claimed the giant and the scented garden were the remnants of a sacred promise, their existence the fulfillment of a wish left behind by time. Others surmised the giant had slumbered here long before the garden came to be, and that its dreaming had birthed the sanctuary that flourished around it. Whatever the truth may be, the scented garden stands as a testament to the profound peace that arises when the vast and eternal meet the fragile and fleeting. Here, the boundaries between what is and what seems to be blur, giving life to a space where one can lose themselves, yet feel complete. Time moves on, as it always does. But within the garden, its rhythm changes slightly, softened by the promises whispered by the dreaming giant. What lies within the garden's tale is not simply a story, but a reflection of all who enter. A mirror to the soul and its boundless yearning for rest and wonder. Every visitor leaves with their own piece of the garden, not in hand, but in spirit. And though the tales continue to live and grow, one truth remains constant. The scented garden and its sleepy giant endure, timeless and boundless, a gentle infinity waiting behind the veil of dreams. The path deepened as if the earth itself sought to cradle every step. Soft moss curling at its edges. The air thickened here, laden with the slightest aroma of petals that only bloomed past the first veil. Their fragrance a story unspoken, yet understood. Time flowed slowly and toward the expansive, and each moment in the scented garden continued more than ever before. An eternal now, where the rhythms of the outer world faded into obscurity. A narrow brook wound its way through this heart of the garden, its water clear and impossibly serene, slipping over stones and trickling through cracks. Each ripple carried with it fragments of the tale, like drops of memory that made no sound, yet communicated a weight of knowing far deeper than words. It was here that the giant's presence became palpable once more, not through images, nor even a sound itself, but through a steady pull, an unseen tether that invited, coaxed, and beckoned travellers closer. Further still, the garden unfurled its vibrant secrets. Stunning flora arching overhead in a protective canopy, creating unique patterns on the ground beneath. These peculiar plants, with stunning hues between emerald and gold, seemed to respond to the unspoken energy here. They leaned toward those who walked, swaying slightly in a wind not felt. Their presence, both grand and delicate, served as a reminder of how deeply entwined every aspect of this place was with the giant's endless reverie. Among these living pillars, the colours began to change. Past the greens and yellows, deeper tones emerged. Burnt ochre, deep plum, midnight indigo, tones that only existed in these recesses of the garden. They whispered silently of dusk eternal, of horizons not bound by sun or moon, but created by the giant's dreaming mind. Past these hues lay more curiosities, where flowers and vines intertwined in impossible patterns, as though the natural and the fantastical had long since merged into one harmonious whole. It was not uncommon for those who progressed further to sense fragments of their own memory intertwining with the energy of the space around them. A sudden recollection, perhaps, of warmth just before a winter's storm, or of laughter that had long since quietened, would drift forward as if summoned here in this peaceful ground. These recollections passed through the garden like a river passes through smooth rocks, softened, reshaped, and expanding into new life. At last, the path led toward what felt like the garden's inner sanctum. Here, the giant's essence eclipsed all else. An anchor within this strange expanse of meandering growth. An ancient tree towered above the rest. A colossus whose roots spiraled into delicate fractals upon the earth. A ceaseless structure, carved not by tools, but by time itself. This tree, the heart of the giant's dream, radiated an energy both vast and intimate. Its great trunk seemed scarred with thousands of intertwining markings, telling tales that could never fully be deciphered, yet felt as though they had always been known. Here, in the sacred quiet of the sanctum, visitors often felt an indescribable shift within. The burdens, the weights they had carried unknowingly, seemed to be gathered by invisible hands and drawn into the earth through the giant's tree. These burdens did not vanish, but instead found their place within the endless circle of the garden's tale, transformed into energy that nourished and sustained the dream that persisted here. Time passed easily in this space. The edges between minutes and hours fading seamlessly. The garden accommodated each visitor, its rhythm adjusting in ways they could not imagine. Some were lulled into rest upon the mossy undergrowth, their minds unable to resist the pull of sleep that accompanied the giant's enduring presence. Dreams within this sleep were said to mirror the tranquility of the scented garden itself. Endless horizons of sprawling, vivid landscapes. The warm exhalation of unseen winds and the fleeting sense that all paths led towards something infinite and eternal. For others, the effect was more quiet, inner reflection. Moments spent beneath the canopy allowed for an awareness of one's own self, woven with an awareness of something far greater. The connection between the visitor and the giant's sleeping essence grounded the soul within the vastness of the natural world. And from that grounding came the understanding that this space, woven of scent and light and memory, was not separate from anyone who wandered into its depths. It was simply a forgotten part of them returning home. Eventually, when the time came to leave the garden, no path was retraced. The way out always appeared different, as though the garden intentionally allowed each traveller their unique departure. A sign that they were guided not by the physical path, but by the serenity instilled within them. The exit was not a point, but a transition, where the scents of the garden mingled one last time with each visitor's breath, lingering like a gentle reminder. Each person departed knowing they carried the garden not as a place, but as a thread woven into the fabric of their spirit. And always the giant remained, quietly dreaming further tales into existence. Whatever purpose or reason existed for this mysterious being was shrouded in the same quiet wonder that defined the entire garden. A being whose rest gave life to the endless beauty around it. A beauty once experienced that would never be forgotten. The scented garden was as it always was, a place and an eternal presence, a haven in the minds of all those who wandered its paths, forever grateful for the peace and wonder it had gifted.